They told me we can't afford a trip but sent my sister's kids first class, so I stayed silent until they regretted it. They told me straight-faced that they couldn't afford a vacation for me this year. Again, that I was old enough to understand adult responsibilities and how money didn't grow on trees. I nodded, I smiled, I swallowed the ache like I always did until I saw the photos. My sister's kids, 7 and 10 years old, giggling in first class. Wings pinned to their polos. Champagne in plastic for the parents. My parents, tagged grinning, living the luxury they swore didn't exist. For people like us, people like me, I said nothing. But a week later, their smiles vanished and I made sure the silence screamed. Chapter 1. Beneath the smilithia are betrayals that come in screams, in slammed doors and thrown plates. And then there are betrayals so quiet, so smoothly delivered. You don't even notice the wound until it festers. My family's betrayal was of the latter kind. For the third year in a row, I had asked my parents if we could go somewhere for the summer. Nothing grand, just a trip out of town, maybe a couple. Nights in the mountains or down at the coast. I had even saved up from tutoring and part-time shifts, ready to chip in. Honey, my mum said, folding laundry like the world hadn't just caved in around me. You know your dad and I are juggling bills right now. We can't go spending money on luxuries. I said nothing. Just like I did the previous year, they made me feel guilty for even asking. Like I was selfish to want memories, to crave stories I could look back on when I was older. Instead, I stayed behind. I worked more. I studied. I reminded myself that being the resilient child was a badge of honor, but my sister's kids? Different story entirely. It started when I scrolled through Instagram on a quiet Friday night. My sister, Lindsay, had posted an album titled Off to Paradise. The first image stopped me cold, my niece and nephew lounging in plush leather seats, grinning at the camera. The header above them read, "First class to Bali." First class, Bali. My thumb hovered over the screen. I looked again. There were my parents, yes, my parents smiling across the aisle. My dad had a champagne flute in hand. My mum was covered in a designer scarf she said we couldn't afford. I blinked, scrolled. More photos, luxury resort, private pool, elephants. A personal chef named Wyan. I stared at the ceiling of my room that night. My stomach knotted with a feeling that wasn't just disappointment. It was betrayal. I hadn't just been left behind. I'd been lied to. For years. The next morning at breakfast, I casually brought it up. So, Bali, huh? They paused. Guilt flickered in their eyes, but it was quickly replaced by defensiveness. Lindsay paid for most of it, Dad said. We were just tagging along to help with the kids. First class, though. I sipped my coffee. Calm. Controlled. You said you couldn't afford a road trip. We didn't want to say no to the grandkids. Mum added, and you know, you're older now. You understand. Right, I said. I understand. But I didn't, and I wasn't about to let it go. I spent the next few days observing, listening, watching them boast to neighbors about the elephants and massages. They kept calling it a family trip. I wasn't part of that family apparently. Then came the kicker. My parents offered to help pay for my cousin Jacob's college dorm setup. When I brought up needing a new laptop for my final semester, they shrugged. Your old one still works, right? It did, barely, and yet I smiled. I nodded. I took notes, because the best revenge isn't loud, it's strategic. By the end of the week, I had a plan. Not to destroy them. I wasn't cruel. I just wanted them to feel it. To taste, if only once, what they served me every year. Exclusion. So when they called, a week later, wondering why I hadn't shown up for the family brunch my sister was hosting, I replied calmly, "Oh, I thought it was just for first class members." They laughed awkwardly. I didn't. Then I hung up, and that was just the beginning. Chapter 2. The ghost at the table. After that brunch no-show, something shifted. I could feel it in the text messages. Shorter, colder. I wasn't just unavailable anymore. I was being treated like the problem child, the ungrateful one, the one who couldn't let things go. Lindsay even texted me directly. You could have just said no, you didn't need to be so petty. I didn't respond. They didn't know the half of it. I started small. I declined invitations to dinners and birthdays, quietly but consistently. I sent gifts, sure, but always practical, always impersonal. A toaster, a step tracker, an Amazon gift card, always precisely $25. No more thoughtful handwritten notes. No more photos framed with love. No more being the good sibling. And they noticed. Mum called one evening. You've been distant? Just busy, I said. With what? Planning something, I said, and left it at that, because I'd been accepted into a grad program across the country. Full ride. And I wasn't going to tell them. Not yet. Instead, I started slowly removing myself. I changed my mailing address, removed them from my emergency contacts. Quiet things. Quiet exits, one by one. Meanwhile, they kept posting. More trips, more smiles, more family moments. Without me, that's when I decided to become a ghost. Present, but absent. Watching, but silent. The kind of ghost that unsettles rooms. Not with screams, but with absence. Then came Lindsay's birthday. Dinner. She booked a fancy restaurant. Sent a group text. Family only. I replied, who's covering the check? She replied, funny, I didn't go. They posted a group picture, captioned, family isn't just about blood, it's about who shows up. I saved it, and then I booked my ticket, not to visit them, but to leave. Chapter 3, Graduation. Gusted day I boarded the plane to Boston. I didn't tell a soul. Not my parents, not my sister, not even my childhood best friend, who used to come over every Thanksgiving like clockwork. The silence was intentional. It was my protest, a slow building echo of all the times I had been forgotten, downplayed, dismissed. My scholarship included housing and a modest monthly stipend. It wasn't luxury, but it was freedom. For the first time in my life, I could breathe without asking for permission. Orientation week passed in a blur. I met students from every coast and every continent. People who didn't know me as Lindsay's sibling or the quiet one. People who didn't assume I'd always settle for less. I excelled. I didn't post much. Just one picture. Library window, autumn leaves, a coffee mug. No location tag. No caption. 3 days later, Mum texted, "Where are you?" I let it sit. Then I replied, "Living." Dad followed up with a call. I let it ring. A week passed. Then two, they sent a group email, a group email asking if I'd be home for Thanksgiving. I replied, "Sorry, can't afford the trip." They didn't catch the irony. Lindsay tried next. "I know you're mad, but come on, the kids miss you." I replied, "Tell them I said hi." But I wasn't being cruel. I was just being done. Then came my birthday. No card, no call, no post. I wasn't surprised, but I was finally free, and they were finally feeling it. Thanksgiving, phantom Thanksgiving came, cold and early that year. Boston wind slapped my cheeks red as I walked the city streets alone, watching strangers hold paper bags filled with food, their faces warm despite the chill. My classmates all had planned, some flew home, others threw friendsgivings in their apartments. I was invited to one, but I politely declined. I wanted solitude. I wanted to know how it felt to be forgotten. On purpose, my phone buzzed all morning. First from my Mum, turkey's in the oven. Wish you were here. Then Dad, miss you kid. Then Lindsay, a video of the kids trying to make cranberry sauce. Their hands were stained red, giggling like cartoons. I muted the thread. I roasted a small chicken in my dorm oven. Edit, on a plate with mashed potatoes from a box. There was no centerpiece, no fancy cutlery, no laughter around me. Just silence, and it felt like justice. They didn't know where I was. They didn't know who I'd become. All they knew was that I wasn't there, and that hurt more than any words I could have ever said. After dinner, I opened my laptop, drafted the beginnings of a personal blog. One entry, the ghost in the frame. I didn't publish it. Not yet. The next day, Lindsay posted a family photo, everyone around the table, arms linked. My seat was empty. Literally, they'd left a chair for me. A plate and a caption, "We saved you a spot." I didn't cry, but I stared at it for a long time. Then closed the app, because the truth is, I wasn't coming back. Not until I was someone they couldn't ignore. I know you're mad, but come on, the kids miss you. I replied, "Tell them I said hi." But I wasn't being cruel. I was just being done. Then came my birthday. No card, no call, no post. I wasn't surprised, but I was finally free, and they were finally feeling it.